Hello, and here we are actually in my office in San Francisco. It's Sunday, so there's nobody here, and I actually really like it in here a lot. So I thought it'd be a great place to come and relax, work for a bit, and make a video with peace and quiet. And today we're going to be talking about how to properly set goals in language learning. I think it's something that's widely accepted, and it's been said by many different people over the years that setting goals is a very important part of language learning, right? Especially because many people say that motivation is a huge part of language learning, and so setting goals is sort of a large part of staying motivated and knowing what to do next and knowing where you're going. Now, as always, if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you will know that I'm always trying to find better ways to explain these commonly accepted ideas, right? What are clearer ways to answer these questions? And so if you watched my video on how to think in a foreign language, for example, that's a video where I really tried to give greater clarity to the question of how do I think in a foreign language, and to actually give a good answer finally. So today, I'm just going to give my 2 cents on what I think is a much better way to think about setting goals in a foreign language. So first, I'll just give you my conclusion, and then we can discuss why I think that. So in one sentence, I believe that setting action goals is far better than setting level goals, okay? Now, let's talk about the two differences. So many people set level goals in language learning, which is basically when you tie your goal to a specific level. Now, it doesn't matter what you call it. You could use the CEFR scale, which is very common. I hear lots of people saying, okay, I want to be a B2 in French, or people ask me all the time, like, hey, so which level do you aim for? Do you always try to reach a C1? Or, people are always asking me or telling me their goals in the CEFR scale. Or there's the standard sort of a beginner, intermediate, advanced. And people say, hey, like I really want to be advanced in Spanish, or I just want to be an intermediate. Now, I actually find that to be a very problematic way to set goals for yourself. But first, let's talk about action goals, okay? So, action goals are essentially things that you want to do in a foreign language, okay? So, for example, I want to be able to read a novel in Swedish without a dictionary. Or I want to be able to enjoy podcasts in German while I go on my walks. And you'll notice that when I give my examples of action goals, I typically give more detail. I give context. I don't just say, I want to be able to read a novel. I say, I want to be able to read a novel without a dictionary and follow the main story. Or I want to be able to enjoy a podcast in German while I walk, because these are things that I do. So I try to also include a context, right, with my actions. Now, let's talk about why I think it's a problem to set level goals. Level goals are abstract. They don't actually exist. There's no defining point when you can say, I am now intermediate. I am now advanced. There's no moment in time when you can say, did it, that's it. I'm a C2, I'm a B1. Of course, you could take the exam, and I suppose that would be a defining moment. But the fact is that most people that I meet that learn languages don't actually take the exams. They're using that as a goal to sort of judge their level. And even if you pass the exam, it's very broad. Like, right? I mean, I could take an A2 exam and pass it, but maybe I'm actually a B2 level. I mean, or maybe I just guessed on some of the questions and got it right. The point is, it's very abstract, and there's a tendency in language learning. One of the hardest things about language learning with motivation is that it's very hard to see your progress. right? Because you don't see it in front of you. It's not something you can measure quite so easily. So lots of people have this problem where they don't think they're making progress when actually they are. So it's very easy to get discouraged and to think to yourself, oh, I'm useless, like I'm not making progress, I'm still a A1, or like I'm miles away from being a B1. So that's problematic. You're chasing something that you don't actually know what it is, right? So how are you supposed to know when you actually got there? Now, the good thing about action goals is that they are tangible. They're something that you can actually do. So I'm going to give you some examples of each one, okay? An example of a level goal is, I want to be a C1 in Italian. Now, an action goal, which I consider to be far better, is I want to be able to go to an Italian dinner party and not only express myself freely, but I also want to be able to follow the main flow of the conversation and understand what people are saying. Okay? That's a very clear thing, and that's actually something that I did. So in my case, it was actually in French, where that was like a dream of mine. And when I was in Lyon one day with a friend of mine, Charlotte, we went to a dinner party. I had set it up. I really wanted this to happen. She invited some friends, and we actually went to a friend's place. There were 6 of us. It was Charlotte and I, and then there was 2 couples. And we had a dinner party together, and it was amazing. And I didn't necessarily fully succeed, actually. I was able to express myself freely, although I did find that I stumbled a bit, like sometimes I would stutter. And I definitely understood most of what was being said. However, it was very, very hard. And there were certainly moments where I lost the flow a bit, and I found it was quite stressful because I didn't understand what everybody was saying. So I was very worried that somebody would ask me a question and I wouldn't understand it. And so about 6 months after that, I had another opportunity to be at a French dinner party, and I nailed it. And so the point is that even if you don't succeed with an action goal, it's much easier to actually measure your progress, right? To say, well, I didn't fully achieve what I wanted yet, but I was close. And then you try it again. So action goals, you can try it again and again and again. You can attempt them as many times as you want. Another example, I want to have a B2 reading level in French. That's a level goal. A action goal would be, I want to be able to read a short, lighthearted novel in French. Not necessarily understanding every word, but I would like to be able to follow the story without a dictionary and enjoy it. Okay? So again, what is a B2 reading level in French? Who knows? It means something different to different people. How do you know when you have achieved it? I don't know. Whereas the action goal, it's very clear. You can try to read a short, lighthearted novel. If it's too hard and you don't understand anything, then that's a measure. You can see very clearly that you have a way to go. In 6 months or whatever, in 4 weeks, you can try again. This is what I did with French, actually. I tried over and over and over. I started at least 12 French novels before I actually ever finished one. I would get through 10 pages the first time, and then it'd be too hard. Then I would get through, 15 pages, 16 pages. Maybe one would be too difficult, and I'd get through. But over time, I realized I was understanding more and more. I realized I was getting through 20% of a book, 30% of a book. And every time I tried to read a new French novel, I was picking up hundreds and hundreds of words and phrases and idioms. So the point is that even before I succeeded, it was very easy to see my progress because I would try again and I would get further. I would understand more until finally I read my first short, lighthearted French novel all the way through without a dictionary, and I understood enough to enjoy the story. One last example is I want to be an A2 in Spanish before my vacation to Madrid. An action goal would be I want to be able to successfully order my food in cafes and restaurants and ask for directions and basic things in Spanish without people switching to English, So again, each one of those examples, the level goals are abstract. There's no definition. There's no actual thing I can do that says I have accomplished my goal. It's basically just up to me to decide. And like I said, there's a tendency to not really see your progress. And so people tend to be very hard on themselves. I meet many people who say like, oh, I'm not even like intermediate. And in my mind, they're definitely intermediate. They speak fine. But then they say to me, oh, well, yeah, but I'm not good at reading. Or, yeah, but I don't understand very well. Or so there's like a debate. If your goal is to, listen, like be able to understand German podcasts, let's say you pick one, right? And you say, I want to be able to understand this podcast one day. Well, guess what? When the day comes that you listen to it and you understood it, there's not really a debate. You could say like, okay, well, I didn't understand it that well. Or the point is, did you listen to it? Yes. Do you understand what happened? Yes. You accomplished your goal. You can now either set a new goal or you can be content. Okay? So I believe that this is just a much better way to approach goal setting in language learning. I think if you set action goals, you set yourself up for success. You actually can celebrate the small successes. So, make sure you set small goals step by step. What I like to do is to have, again, like short-term, medium, long-term goals. My short-term goal could actually be just tracking my progress. It could be, I really want to make sure that I get through, a chapter of this novel this week, or I want to make sure I finish my beginner's course, this month or whatever. But then I might have like medium-term goals and then long-term goals, which are going to be the more advanced things like the dinner party. Or that's why I tried to include the example of the vacation, in the A2 in Spanish. So like I said, I hope that helps you. I really hope that this, contributes to the discussion. I hope that this adds a bit of clarity, and hopefully this will help at least some people avoid losing the motivation by setting action goals that they can actually do. They're tangible, you can attain them, and you can enjoy the journey of language learning.